Okay, so I think everyone's muted and I'm not hearing an echo, so away we go. Hello, everyone. I'm Marilyn Macdonald, faculty member in the School of Nursing and also director of our JBI Evidence Synthesis Center in the School of Nursing. And you can see the name of our center, Aligning Health Needs and Evidence for Transformative Change, a JBI Centre of Excellence. And I would also, before I go any further, have Erin introduce themselves.
Hi, everybody. My name is Erin Langman, and I am the research associate for the center.
Maybe give your background, Erin.
Yeah, good idea. So my background is as a health sciences librarian. I worked as a liaison librarian for the nursing department at Saskatchewan Polytechnic for the previous 7 years, I believe, before I started at the center. So that's my background as a librarian.
And the next slide actually is an introduction to JBI by the CEO located at University of Adelaide in Adelaide, South Australia. And so I think it's probably only 3 or 4 minutes, Erin, I believe. Am I correct in saying that?
I don't think the actual video is there.
Oh, okay. So it's just good because I know that there's 2 versions of it and I wanted the short one. So the fact that we don't have one, that's good. So I can let you read for yourself. This is a message from Zoe Jordan, the ED of JBI worldwide. So improving health outcomes. And of course, that's done through the synthesis work as well as implementation science work. And the JBI acronym originally stood for Joanna Briggs Institute. And Joanna Briggs was the first director of nursing at the Royal Adelaide Hospital, probably in the early 1900s. But in the latest branding exercise that was done, the Joanna Briggs Institute was dropped in favor of JBI. So JBI is the official name of the entity. So a little bit of a snapshot. JBI considers itself to be a leading global evidence-based healthcare organization. And what they're about is obvious there in the second bullet. And work across 40 countries. And there's approximately 70 entities. And when I use the term entity, because individuals who originally make the decision or plan to become an evidence synthesis entity, you start as an affiliate group. And there are certain activity requirements within a designated period of time that you need to complete in order to qualify to apply to become a center. So we started out as an affiliate group around 2015 and then became a center in 2018. And of course, we have partners around the world, as I said, somewhere in the order of 70 entities. And we exist to improve health outcomes. And I like this slide because I love the colors, and the vision and the mission are so crisp that it's a treat to share that. And of course, questions that matter. And we often think of effectiveness, and naturally, we all want to know if something is effective or not, but evidence comes in more ways to us than strictly effectiveness metrics. And so, for example, I believe it was in 1992 that Cochrane started doing synthesis work. But all they synthesized at that time were the results of randomized control trials. And so clearly there were many, many other research designs being used and evidence being generated. and none of it was being synthesized. And so that, of course, left a vacuum into which JBI stepped. And so now recognize 10 different approaches to evidence synthesis and have an evidence synthesis manual with chapters addressing how to go about those various types of syntheses. And of course, driven by a model of evidence-based healthcare. And I won't take the time to go into the model today. I just want you to know that it exists and it's easily accessible on the JBI website. And by simply, the URL is jbi.global, and it'll take you to anything you want to find about JBI. And also implementation framework, because of course, a natural step following synthesis work, depending of course on what the work is, many groups would want to go on and implement what they're doing. And so here you see a framework for that as per JBI. And the collaboration, so this gives you a little bit of a snapshot on where around the world the entities are located. And so the globe is not covered, but it's when you have that many entities, you know that you're touching a great portion of the world, which is good news. And again, this every other year, all of the directors of centers around the world and their guests meet in Adelaide. And the off year, one of the entities around the world will be the host. So so the meeting is in Adelaide this year in November, and next year it will be in Prague. So that's how that rotation unfolds. And there's also, I don't know if the regions, there are 4 regions around the world, and we happen to be in the region of the Americas, being located in North America. So we're comprised of North America and South America. And so as a region, the directors meet twice a year, once always virtually, and the other time face-to-face is an option, but entities can also attend the meeting portion virtually. And I already mentioned this information, so don't need to spend any more time on that, and to give you a notion of who is part. You can see these. So for example, core staff can change because individuals who became part of core staff, sometimes they choose to, they discover that they really aren't, that synthesis work isn't really where their heart lies and what they want to be doing. And so it's not an issue, it can easily step away. And there's always other individuals who would be happy to join. And of course, for core staff, we're limited to 10 individuals. Adjunct staff, we're not limited. And so we can certainly include folks in adjunct staff, and then they can just slip into core staff as others slip out. And just to give you some idea, once you become a center, there are it says key performance criteria, so that we have to accrue a certain number of points over a 3-year period to maintain our center status. And if we don't maintain status, then you get dropped back to affiliate status. I think it's 69,000 maybe. Could be wrong. Anyway, we're on track at the present time to meet our performance criteria. And then there's just a little bit of information about activity in our center. And so JBI worldwide have an event every spring called the Global Solution Room. G for global, and then local for your particular entity. And we're invited to carry out an activity over a period of usually it's a week to 10 days. And so this just tells you what our activity was this week. And it really was. Erin, I can't remember, were you present for that?
No, unfortunately, I was on a plane.
Oh, right. Anyway, it was very nicely done because this review, Dr. Elaine Moody from our school and Elliot Post-Jensen is a public member and very interested individual in the conduct of anything related to care of the older person. But the whole idea for this review came from Elliot and a group of individuals in Elliot's social circle. And she is just an amazing co-investigator or co-PI actually with Elaine. And anytime if you ever get an opportunity to hear Elliot, it's a wonderful experience. And when we think of engaging with non-researchers to do research work, Elliot is an amazing individual for this activity. And of course, this is one of the means by which we accrue some of the points. And then, of course, we offer a comprehensive systematic review training program. And Erin, since you organize it and are key to its delivery, how about you chime in here?
Yeah, absolutely. So this was the first year that we delivered this program hybrid. Over the last few years, it's been done online, and then of course before that in person. There was definitely benefits to doing it online, as we were able to offer it to people across Canada rather than just in the Maritimes. So we tried hybrid this year, and I believe we're planning to do it again next year. And yeah, no, there was a few hiccups in terms of technology, but I think it was really beneficial long run. There was 21 people who attended from Halifax and across Canada. We had someone from Saskatchewan. I think there was somebody from, if I'm not mistaken, Alberta as well. And it was co-taught with the University of New Brunswick. Dr. Lisa Keeping-Burke collaborated with us, and so she taught the course with Dr. Janet Curran and Dr. Lori Weeks.
Yeah, so those are our two trainers within our own center. And then once you become a trainer, you need to do at least one training a year to maintain your certification as a trainer. And so Lisa Keeping-Burke at University of New Brunswick in St. John, New Brunswick, was struggling with that and asked if we would be open to Lisa joining our team for an annual training because their center didn't necessarily have trainees each year. So, and actually it works great because both Janet and Lori find that when you do 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, it's pretty intensive. And I see Sherry Roach is with us today, and Sherry did the training in May and June. And Sherry, I don't know if you would have any comments to share. Oh, and Alana, I think you did it as well. So, and if there's anyone else online that wants to comment, please go ahead. Sherry.
Sure. I mean, I would just offer that it was it was intensive, but a really great learning experience. And, I think maybe as valuable as the information gained, the connections made with folks who are doing, doing various projects in various capacities, right? With research teams, without research teams, there were students in various different programs. There were some faculty members like me. It was a really enjoyable experience, I found. And I've also found since then the materials, which, we heard from the instructors as we went, but the materials have been really, really invaluable as I've been slowly thinking about sort of the things that I'm going to do or trying to put things in order. So that's what I would offer.
Thanks, Sharon. Anyone else who's done the training have anything they'd like to share?
Hi, Marilyn.
Hi, Alana.
Hi, how are you?
I'm great.
I'll just add that I would echo everything that Sherry said. And I also found that it was a really good refresher for methods, for qualitative and quantitative and mixed methods. So you had all of the systematic review training, and then you had this methods, pretty intensive methods for some. Some of it was didn't go as in depth depending on the method. And also it's really helped me determine what kind of a review I always thought. And it was interesting because I think Lori said this, that everybody always says, I want to do a scoping review. And I think I went in saying, oh, I'm going to do a scoping review. But it's changed. So my review topic has changed. And also the review that I'm doing has changed. So it was really great for helping that decision be made, I think, based on what we learned.
Excellent that you shared that, Alana, because that's one of the reminders that people who are going to do the training is to come with an idea and, if possible, a review question. And then, as you just verbalized or explained, that the going through the training, you actually visit that or talk about what your idea and or your questions are, and it helps you as part of the training to confirm your plan or choice or to alter it perhaps. Anyone else? Okay, if not, we can continue on. And then this is just a little bit about productivity, so you have a sense of what's going on in the center. And there's always other things that are in the works, but this productivity report essentially speaks to completed work as opposed to work in progress, of which there's much. And then this is, again, I just mentioned Public Health Agency of Canada, COVID and SPORE. So these were all work that was completed in the past year, these LES, these living evidence syntheses. And so the Public Health Agency of Canada wanted, or I guess you'd say, they didn't necessarily come up with the term living evidence syntheses, but essentially the measures that were put in place, whether they be public health or health system, they wanted them visited on some sort of ongoing basis. And so, for example, if a review was done 1 year ago about the masking, for example, then 1 year later, doing a follow-up or not, a follow-up, so that you would look at the evidence from the time of the initial review up until the present time. So this notion of living, in other words, that it's ongoing. And so you can see Janet did this one, and then myself, the unintended consequences of masking. And so we carried out this review and were asked if we were interested in doing one going forward. And We haven't received confirmation that there will be a request for a subsequent one, but we confirmed that yes, if Public Health Agency of Canada wanted to fund a subsequent one in this topic area, yes, we would be interested in being part of the competition to be selected. Yeah, so this gives you some idea of some of the work that's in the works. And this, again, you saw earlier when the study that Elaine Moody and Elliot Poss-Jensen are leading. And this is a contract that the Centre took with the Spore Evidence Alliance of Canada. And the final report is in progress, give you some idea of what's going on with that one. And then our Centre also took a contract with the World Health Organization, Center for Health Development. And the ask was that we do a rapid scoping review of initiatives to improve coverage, quality, financial protection, and financial sustainability in long-term care. That report, the initial report, went in December of 2022, but we worked with them really actually right through June of this year, because once they receive your report, that a lot of back and forth, first of all, clarification, and then as we worked through the various deliverables from the report, including a manuscript that's with BMJ Open. And it's been a while since I've gotten an update, Aaron, but I don't know what the latest news on that is. Last I heard it was out for review.
Yes, no, the feedback from the peer reviewers came back, and I think it's just with the editors right now.
Okay.
Hopefully we'll hear soon.
And I have to say, of course, we submitted the review, and naturally, when it was the original submission that went in, you always want to have more days or weeks or whatever to polish it. However, they engage with they always engage an editor when they contract with individuals to produce a product. And this editor truly was amazing, because although I thought it was a decent piece of work, when I saw the edited version, it was really so much more crisp. And yeah, I thought it made us look way better than what I had originally produced. So although when you're doing contract work versus grant work, it's quite different. There's more autonomy, I would say, on grant work. However, contract work is interesting in its own right, and I wouldn't discourage anyone from jumping in there. And we also, this past year, were successful in obtaining a JBI Brighter Futures grant. This is the first time that JBI Adelaide had a funding competition. And so there were, I think, 23 applications for this grant, and 11 were selected. And we were one of the 11. And we partnered with the affiliate group at the center in Lima, Peru. And it was their review idea, and what they wanted to do was look at intimate partner violence. That was our original idea among older adults in Latin American countries. There's been a lot of evolution in the work as we started down the road. And it's a fascinating endeavor in every way. So stay tuned for updates on that. And this, of course, is Dr. Janet Kern and Christine Cassidy, one of their initiatives. And right now, Aaron and I are in the throes of a review / environmental scan. It has more scanning to it than review, I would say. And the ask came from the Health Standards Organization of Canada, and they are doing this standards work for the Correctional Services of Canada. And it's in two parts. We were asked to find reviews of health services in Canadian correctional institutions over the past 10 years. And then part 2, or question 2, was to look at models of prison healthcare in other countries. And so we had a conversation about, okay, what other countries do you want us to include when we're looking at models? And this was the number, these are the countries as listed here. And that's a fascinating piece of work. So yeah, so that's the first part of the presentation for today, and happy to entertain questions or comments. Okay, I'll stop sharing that one. And this will end the presentation to everyone to switch presenters, select cancel, so the next person can take control. Well, I'm not switching presenters, I'm continuing on. So which selection do I make?
You might have to stop sharing and reshare since you're switching presentations.
Well, I did click stop sharing, and that's the message I got.
Yeah, no, I think that should be fine, and then you could share again.
So I'll go stop presenting?
Hmm.
Well, we'll see. Okay, so then share, and I'll go to this one, I think. Okay, you see that? Nursing home residents' experiences?
Yep.
Great. Okay, so part B of this session is about a mixed methods systematic review. And this has been, of course, we developed a protocol, published the protocol on this work. But previous to this, we did a scoping review looking at what technologies were in use in long-term care facilities. And so following that scoping review of what was in use, then we wanted to know, okay, we have some idea of what's in use, but we certainly found nothing in that literature about the experiences of the people using it or of the effectiveness. So that out of that came our idea to do a mixed methods review of the effectiveness of technologies that support social interaction, as well as the experiences of the residents who were using these technologies. And of course, team, all important. We don't get this work done without a team, and nice to see. So I know Alana's here. Let's see if anybody else from the team is here. Lori? Don't see Lori. Yeah, anyway, if I've missed anyone who's present, please let me know. But anyway, we had a great team, including, you can see here, Janet Sim, who would be the CEO of Northwood, right here in Halifax, and a great team member. And so always a little bit of background to situate you with, situate all of you. No surprise to any of us, the aging of the population, and in all likelihood raises the demand for long-term care services. There is certainly evidence on the experiences of loneliness and depression in long-term care, and how these actually can escalate, or in other words, the cognitive decline in the presence of loneliness and depression gathers momentum. The COVID-19 pandemic, all of you know that long-term care institutions were very disadvantaged in terms of the numbers of cases of COVID-19 and deaths. And then, of course, ultimately, little is known about their experiences with the use of technologies and the effectiveness. And the other unfortunate way to discover, but good thing, was when people could not visit their family members in these facilities, naturally, they created as many, what would I say, opportunities or ways to connect with a family member or a neighbor or whoever happened to be in a facility. And of course, use of tablet technologies and smartphones, et cetera, video conferencing, that sort of thing. Certainly, there was a surge in the use of those technologies. So I suspect that although there wasn't a lot of evidence in this piece of work, if we were to redo that work, you know, even in the next 2 to 5 years, if we did follow up to this, I expect the number of studies would be considerably more than what we found for this review. Objective, I believe, already in evidence. And what were our review questions? Again, we wanted to know what the experiences were, and we wanted to know the effectiveness. And this is the type of systematic review. This is the approach that we used, and of course, the databases that were included, as well as a gray lit search. And of course, the quant and qual data were analyzed separately, then integrated. And the results. So this is the number of title and abstracts that the team reviewed. And from there, we then included 137 full text articles. And upon review of those full text articles, which of course had to meet the inclusion criteria, 14 studies were retained. And you can see they were published between 1995 and 2021. And where were the studies located? And yeah, interesting, huh? We might, I don't know that we necessarily that necessarily would have been our guesstimation before actually doing the work. And so what types of technologies were used? As you can see, video conferencing, far and away. And that occurred, of course, naturally with friends and or family. And one of the studies, it was actually, there was a local junior high in the community. And so the residents of the facility, they actually had a project whereby they had regular communication with the students at the junior high school. And of course, there was a use of non-video conferencing, a group physical activity that was technology enabled, and then digital storybooks and online community engagement. So give you a little sense of, in terms of the instruments used for measuring depression, a geriatric depression scale, and the UCLA loneliness scale. And those two are referred to specifically here because we actually did meta-analysis of the studies that used the geriatric depression scale and the UCLA loneliness scale so that we could do some comparison work. Or the studies that had an intervention and control group and that used the depression scale and the UCLA loneliness scale. And a little bit of narrative here. And you see, given the small number of studies and the small sample sizes within the included studies, these findings have to be interpreted with caution. Qualitative results. We extracted 19 themes, which resulted in 2 categories, and those being an enhanced sense of well-being. And residents used descriptors of their experience such as happy, wonderful, fabulous, fulfilling, interprofessional, relationships, a positive way to engage with family and friends, and feeling immersed in the lives of their families. And the illustration that we included here, that being video conferencing, is a fun and helpful activity, although it just took me a little time to interact with my family. I feel fabulous every time after talking with my son. Sometimes he plays a song that I like on the violin, which he would never bring here to the nursing home. And so the feeling from the qualitative data was much more, what would I say, sort of encouraging, or you knew that the participants or the in these studies, there was really a connection with the technology, but it didn't play out in the quantitative data, and I'll come back to that in a few minutes. And then, of course, a mismatch between technology and residents/user ability. So residents reported needing help to be able to use the technology. Steps to make a video call were complicated. And also individuals who had memory and dexterity challenges have to be taken into consideration, and that the software was glitchy and would drop calls. And so I didn't know how to use it, that being the video conferencing equipment, every time someone needed to help me use it. Sometimes I think the phone might be quicker and easier to control, especially when I first used the setup. It felt very strange to talk with a computer, even when my son was on the other side. So all that to say that I felt that when the results of the meta-analysis didn't reach significance, I really feel that, for example, this category 2, this finding, to me, helps us understand the results from the quantitative piece, because you could see in that first illustration I showed the enthusiasm about it, but it was tempered with this. So when it worked, it was great. And when I had someone to assist me, it was great. But, you know, once the study is over and there isn't someone to facilitate ongoing use of the technology, or it isn't incorporated into day-to-day living for residents in long-term care, then this notion of mismatch. So, you know, when I was writing the discussion and the interpretation discussion piece, it struck me that dexterity is commonly an issue with technology. And I believe that the developers of technology aren't necessarily thinking of the individuals who are in a long-term care facility as part of their market share, the people that they're marketing to. But I really think that, you know, for example, voice activation, if they know by simply saying, you know, I want to make a video conference call, and up it pops and away they go, to me, I believe all of that functionality is possible, and I would argue likely exists, but hasn't necessarily been tied to this population. And I think that, yeah, anyway, I could go on and on about that, but so matching technology functionality to user for enhanced well-being. So the residents liked it, but not being able to use at their convenience is just not good. And I think that matching user ability to technology is just the way to go for this population in particular. And so looking at data integration, I believe that the results were complementary. Participant challenges using the technology identified in the qual helps explain why there were not significant results in the quant. Now, there were weaknesses in the quant data, as we already stated, in terms of the sample sizes in the studies. And we'll talk about some other points related to those. Okay, so recommendations and implementation. So our practice and policy. So technology developers should consider age-appropriate functionalities of technologies to optimize their use, and the potential to have recreational therapists support residents with technology interactions as part of scope of practice. I really stayed away from, because the one thing we know is that long-term care facilities, saying that the staff need to help residents with this. Staffing is such a challenge for, doesn't matter where healthcare is being delivered. So it really felt, I didn't feel like I could responsibly make a recommendation like that. But rather, I really do believe, as I said just a few moments ago, that voice activation, we know that it exists in many forms, and I don't see any reason why it couldn't be made to work in long-term care facilities. And of course, I make the point here. Research into usability, feasibility, and effectiveness. They make technologies more accessible and further support residents' health and social outcomes. And what were the limitations? A small number of studies that were included in the review, sample sizes within the included studies, and there's always the potential that we may miss studies in our searches, because if the key terms we use didn't happen to appear in studies that were really about our topic, then of course they won't get picked up. I'm going to go back, because what we didn't put in the limitations, but that this report of this study is accepted pending a last round of revisions. And in the last round of revisions, essentially one thing they asked us to address, and that was publication bias, as well as methodological and clinical bias. And so methodologically, in these studies, so we had 2 meta-analyses and 4 studies in each of the meta-analyses. And so in terms of time points, one study measured outcomes at base, and this is for depression, at baseline 3, 6, and 12 months. A second, baseline 1, 3, and 6 months. A third, baseline 1 week and 3 months. And they did the exact same for the UCLA loneliness scale. And so that definitely, I need to go back. So in order to respond to the reviewers' comments about methodological and clinical bias, I have to, first of all, review the interventions themselves and think about how I'm going to respond to their question around methodological and clinical bias, because I've not been asked that in the reviews that I've been associated with before, but I think it's an excellent question. And so do I think that it's clinically significant that measures of depression were done at baseline 3, 6, and 12 months with video conferencing, baseline 1, 3, and 6 months with video conferencing? The first thing I'm going to do is look at, I believe the authors of these, it's the same authors for these studies, for the 3 that have baseline 3, 6, and 12, baseline 1, 3, and 6, and baseline 1 and 3. And it seems to me, I recall that they explain why that variation in time points. So once I check that out, that will help me with my response to a certain extent. But since I have such a great audience, and I received that feedback, and that feedback came from the last round of reviews, and whereby the paper was sent to a statistician for statistical review. Any observations, suggestions, direction for me in terms of answering that reviewer query? What do you think of the question? I'm not sure how to interpret the silence. Well, I'll have to put together my response and revise my report accordingly, and maybe I'll have to have a return performance, Julie, to report how that played out. What do you think?
That sounds like a good plan.
Okay, so in other words, so I didn't, when I talked about limitations, I didn't talk about the variation in time points in the conduct of these studies, or highlight I guess I didn't feel like the interventions were that different because they were largely video conferencing related. Video conferencing for two of them were using laptop, and the other was using smartphone. So, and then of course the third intervention was individuals learning to use email to play games and to record online posts, which certainly was different than the video conferencing piece. And so I believe three of the interventions were really quite comparable. I would argue that learning to do email, play games, and enter online posts is different than video conferencing. So yeah, I'll have to come up with some, I'll have to craft something to be able to point that out and to be able to make some sort of statement around the to speak to this clinically and methodologically. So I really have to put my thinking cap on this one. Okay, so that's my mixed methods study. Any questions for me or observations? I don't think I included oh, I skipped oh yeah, so these were the funders for the work, which we can never have enough funders, and so it was great. I received Sigma funding as well as Canadian Gerontological Nursing Association and Faculty of Health at Dalhousie, so always appreciative of. It's amazing what we can do with every bit of funding that we get. And so you see my first conclusion. The second, assistance is needed to use these technologies in their current form for sure. And also my plea for the developers to consider incorporating functionalities to make them usable and accessible for this particular age group. Does it make you all want to do one? Anyone online planning to do a review? Great. Oh, Salma, I'm so pleased to hear that. Because of course you're an experienced reviewer now, so that's good news. And also for those of you who know Salma, you probably know that Salma successfully defended her doctoral thesis very recently, and so is I assume, Salma, it wouldn't surprise me if your whatever revisions that you had to make, they're probably already done.
Not really. Not really. I took a break last week.
Oh, imagine taking a week off, Salma.
And planning to start today.
Well,
to,
good for
to
you.
look at the revision. I didn't read them yet even. Yeah.
Well, that is, I'm sure, because you really worked, so hard to meet the deadline for submission of your thesis and for preparing for your final oral exam. So you really did need a little bit of downtime.
Yeah, exactly.
Wonderful. Okay, well, the other one plug that I wanted to make that we always encourage those of you who are interested in reviews, doing reviews, our center, we have a meeting Thursdays at noon. It's virtual, attendance is virtual. You can come if you only have 10 minutes that you can fit in, or if you want to join us for the hour. We do a round table, check in with people as to where they are with their reviews. And really the whole purpose is to support one another in our work. And so you're most welcome. And even if you've never done a review and you want to learn more about reviews, you're welcome to join. So don't hesitate, and let either Erin or I know that you want to join our Thursdays at noon, and we send you the link and away you go. And Erin has put her email in the chat, so that's how you can get connected. So, okay, everyone, thank you for your attendance. And signing off.
Thank you so much, Marilyn and Erin. And yeah, if anyone has any questions, you can forward them to me and I can forward them to Erin or Marilyn, or go directly to them.
The other thing we didn't mention, Erin, was our training for this year. We haven't set the date, have we?
No, I think it's going to be in May.
Okay.
But feel free to email me at annette@dal.ca. Just put it in the chat, and I can email you as soon as those dates are finalized.
Great.
Thanks,
and if you send them to me, then I can obviously distribute through the center so that we can share widely.
Okay, bye everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.